Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Fiddle. Continuing with the ribbon furniture, today we're going to be making a vanity, chair, brush set, and bottles. If you would like to make these pieces for yourself, check the link in the description and that will send you to the scavenger hunt and a free printable pattern. I am having some voice trouble, so if I sound kind of funny, that's why, and I'm sorry. Hopefully I can make it through the tutorial and still have a voice by the time it's all said and done. The first thing we need to do is prep the ribbon. You will need some watered down glue, paintbrush, and a blow dryer. If you don't have a blow dryer, you can stick it near an vent and let it air dry. This gives strength to the ribbon and prevents the edges from fraying. I think 4 10-inch strips should get you there. I started with 2 long strips and ended up going back and cutting more. The first piece we're going to trace and cut out is the vanity top. For now, we're not going to cut out the inside lines, we just want the outside overall shape. Be sure to hold on to all the pattern pieces even after we've used them once because they will come in handy later. Next, cut a long strip from the side of your ribbon, leaving a little bit of the woven piece there. That's going to help keep it together and give us an edge to glue to. We're going to turn this strip into this trim around the top of the vanity. To attach the trim, I went with super glue. You can use regular white glue or tacky glue and use clamps to hold it along the way. If you use super glue, just be prepared to glue yourself to it a million times. Before you start gluing, get your wire bent in the right shape. This is so that way when you do glue it, you won't have waves and wrinkles. Using the vanity top as a guide where our lines meet at the corners and work your way all the way around the front edge of the piece. You'll have to cut slits in the corners to make the fabric bend the way it needs to go. The next piece that we're going to make is the vanity back. You may have to glue a few strips together to get the full piece depending on how wide your ribbon is. Cut the trim on the edges that you have to glue together. That'll help to hide the seams. Set it aside for drying and we're going to grab the bottom drawer bottom piece. Sorry, I had no idea what to label it as on the pattern. We're going to need 2 of these shapes. Next, we're going to add trim to the 3 rounded sides. Don't worry about the flat side, that's going to be glued to the vanity back and we won't be able to see it. If you run out of trim that you've treated with the glue, go back and make more. Don't try to use trim that isn't treated. Even though you'll want to, trust me, I did. Because it may cause a dark spot wherever you glue your pieces together. Set those aside and we're going to move on to the top drawer tops. Trace, cut, and trim 2 of these pieces. Just like the last pieces we did, you don't have to wrap around the straight side. And because I've already shown you how to do the trim, we're going to go on to the next pieces, and those are going to be the bottom drawer side walls. These are 2 by 2 inch squares, so you can leave one edge with the trim on it, and you'll need 4 of them. We're not going to worry about adding trim to those right now. We'll do that closer to the end of building. We're going to turn our attention to the back of the vanity. To make sure we get the drawers in the right place, using the pattern as a guide, mark where the drawer dividers and vanity top will be. That will help us later. The first pieces we're going to glue down are the inside side walls. This is because we want to build basically from the center out so the other pieces and our fingers don't get in the way. While gluing, the cut edge needs to be towards the back of the vanity and the trim edge needs to go towards the front where the drawers will be. Set that aside to dry and then we're going to move on to the little drawers on top. For this, you're going to need the top drawer tops and the top drawer sides. You'll want to glue them just on the inside of your trim line. Once you have both the drawer tops glued together, we're going to move on to the middle drawer bottom. For this piece, you only need to add trim to the front curved edge. Now that we have this piece made, we can attach it to the back. Don't glue the sides yet. We just want to make sure that the bottom's lined up right before we attach them, because that might cause waves later on. While that's drying, we can add the trim to the side front of the little drawers. We'll add the rest of the trim later. The back of the drawer should be dry enough to where we can attach the sides now without it moving. Yep, and I glued my fingers to it too. The struggle was real. We are now ready to glue the tabletop down. I used the white glue to glue along the back and super glue to attach the other pieces. The next two pieces aren't on our pattern page, but they're going to be the dividers in between the lower drawers. You'll want them to fit in without bowing the fabric out, and this may take some test fits. It should be just under an inch wide and 2 inches long, with trim being on one of the short ends. When you have them cut to fit, you can go ahead and glue them in place using the lines that we had marked earlier as a guide. Now we can attach the very bottom pieces. The trim will sit just on the outside of the walls. I glued my finger there too. The next pieces we're going to add are the little top drawers. With the possible variations in different sizes, the best bet to go for on here is to line up the wall of the bottom drawers with your little one on top. I remembered to do that for one side but not the other, so mine are off by a bit. The last thing we need to make and attach is the legs. I took wood laser cut gears, cut all the teeth off and sanded it a bit to make it round, and used that as a solid base to glue the toothpick and beads to. I apologize, but I had forgot to put that on the scavenger list. Their purpose is to give a little bit more of a surface area to glue on the bottom. You can use a spot of chip cardboard or something else if you do not have these wood pieces. To attach them to the bottom of the vanity, I used wood glue around the outside edge and super glue in the center. I think this is going to be the new way that I glue my pieces together when I need that instant bond, but something stronger or more dependable than super glue itself. Next, we can add the trim around the back piece of the vanity. I used an untreated trim, and this is where I found out that it may leave a dark spot on your ribbon if you don't treat it with watered down glue first. Thankfully, you can't tell from the front because the rest of the vanity piece was treated. You can start the trim at either the tabletop piece or at the top corner of your little drawers. Since I had a bit sticking out on the side of mine, I went ahead and went all the way down to the tabletop and glued my finger again in the process. Now we are ready to make the drawers. I didn't put them on the pattern because of possible size variations, but I will give you the approximate dimensions that I went off of. We'll start with the little top drawers. The first thing I did was cut a strip of trim that was about 1/2 an inch wide. This will become our drawer faces. We can also use this for the side and back walls of the drawer. Minus the trim, the drawer faces should be about 1 inch long, but measure up against it just to make sure. The drawer bottom should be a 1 by 1 inch square. Test fit as you go to make sure that you have the right size. Once your drawers are made, you can add the trim around the drawer front to give it a bit more detail. I cut my corners at an angle to frame in the drawer. That one hurt a little bit there. We're going to move on to making the middle drawer. For this one, I just traced the pattern piece bottom middle drawer because it is the correct size, although we do need it just a smidge smaller. Then I gave it a trim on the front edge, following along with the curve, just as we did the other piece. Cut a long half-inch strip of ribbon. Using the drawer bottom as a guide, cut the lengths you'll need for the drawer's sides and back. The front of this drawer is going to be longer than the back is because it does have the curve on both sides. I would suggest using super glue and working your way along the curved edge until you reach the other side. Unfortunately, I don't have the footage for making the 2-inch by 1-inch drawers, but they are 1 inch tall and 2 inches deep, and that should give you the proper measurements. Or you can revert to the way that we did at the beginning, where you cut and measure until you get them to fit right. When you're done with that, set the vanity aside. We're going to start working on the chair. You'll need 4 toothpicks and 16 oval beads, 4 for each one of the legs. I use beads to help make sure all my legs are the same length. Plus it adds more detail and carries over the legs from the vanity. Next, we need to cut out the chair bottom piece from our pattern and make sure that you have the trim along the straight side. This will be the seat to the chair. Using the mirror portion from the vanity, trace half of it onto your ribbon. This is going to be the back part of the chair, and you can leave the trim on this straight edge as well. It'll save you time later. Don't throw the mirror pattern away yet, we will need it later. Cut it out and then add trim along the curved edge. Now we are ready to glue the seat to the back, gluing the straight edge of the oval to the round edge of the seat. And of course, I glued my fingers, although this time it was the bottle, not the project. Didn't see that coming. Now you can add trim wherever you like. I put a stripe around the base of the seat and around the back. Even though the legs put the chair at the right height, they looked like they were a little too long, so I cut a 1/2 inch strip and glued it around the bottom edge of the chair. It'll hide the next few pieces that we glue in. To help support the dainty legs and to make sure I'm not getting a buildup of glue through the bottom side of the chair, I put 2 scrap pieces of popsicle sticks and glued them there with white wood glue. Then I used super glue and baking soda to glue the legs to the wood pieces. I didn't have any wood gears left, so I improvised with the baking soda instead because that builds up and gives a bigger surface area. Next, we are going to finish making the vanity top. This is the part where the mirror goes. Cut out the center circle so you just have the rim. I traced it onto 2 separate pieces to make it easier to cut out. We're going to be covering it later, so it doesn't matter where the seam is. Then I glued the 2 pieces together, leaving my opening. Next, I traced and cut the outside circle. The first piece of trim that I added to the mirror is just a bit of twine on the outside rim. Originally, I was going to use it as kind of a spacer in between the vanity back and the frame so I can replace the mirror as needed. though I ended up not using it that way and it just became decorative. I felt like it still needed more, so I dug in my stash and found this ribbon that I thought would really look cute for the frame. I cut a long enough piece to go all the way around the rim, then glued it down just inside of my rope trim. I think it adds a lot of detail in just a little effort. Now we are ready to glue the mirror frame down. I only put glue along the bottom edge up to the halfway point on each side so I can get the mirror in and out as needed. Now we are ready for the drawer knobs and handles. You will need what I call fancy ended toothpicks. For the little top drawers, I cut the end of the toothpick off and glued it to the front. For the other 5 drawer knobs, you will need a bit of thin wire and some more fancy toothpicks. Cut the fancy end off of 10 of them, 2 for each drawer. Then with round nose pliers, make a tiny loop at one end. Then slip your toothpick through it to where the wire sits inside the groove. Then bite down on the wire to make it close tightly around it. Use the drawer to get the right length and follow the same steps for the handle on the other side. And with that, it brings us to the end of our tutorial. I will be doing a part 2 where we will be making bottles and brushes along with painting and putting in a mirror. If you've made it this far, thank you for being here. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment because it helps me with YouTube's algorithm. Thank you, Ginger, and I'll see you next time.